My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sangran, Guru Piran Nyo, fellow Nyanis. I hope all of you all are doing well. Um, Today I'm going to cover an important topic. In the last few weeks, we've been covering um, the importance of meditation and how meditation, helps change the structure of the human brains. And we saw that meditation has an impact on different parts of the brain, and it has tremendous positive impact in strengthening our neural connectivity and parts of the brains that helps us in many of our functions day to day. And I'll cover a little bit more in detail. We've gone through the detailed analysis of the impact of meditation to the brain, and I've drawn that from Mahan's teachings and also a lot of scientific literature that shows that, uh, why meditation is really important. Today, I want to cover similar to what we covered, but less technical. Mhm. And here are the benefits of this practice of introspection, contemplation, reflection, meditation, and also service, right? And we know that when we start introspecting very deeply, when we start, uh, focusing inwards, there is something that happens to our brain waves, the various frequencies of our brains, because we're always bombarded by a lot of stimulation from the external world. And sometimes, it draws us and tires us. So, but occasionally when we sit down quietly and we introspect and start sifting out what are the thoughts that are really important, deepens and gives us a much more profound impact, and leave out the thoughts that are not so important, very trivial. And we see that, our brain starts recalibrating. So this is the first prelude to intensive meditation. So the introspection, then the contemplation of all our experiences, both the sukha dukkha experiences and also the experiences that gives us a little bit more sublimity and peaceful. So we have to reflect back, and not just go with the flow of, happy and sad feelings. So this introspection, contemplation, reflection is a way that we observe things that are happening in our mind. And of course, when we do all that and we learn to manage it, our meditation improves. And when our meditation improves, we see that we get a much more universal perspective of our experience. And you see that our personality shifts from an individual personality, from an egocentric personality, to a much more broader, much more universal, much more caring, much more, and you see that people who take a path to the spiritual path, particularly through introspection, contemplation, reflection, meditation, they start thinking about a much more universal perspective of one's life. And there is enough scientific literature that shows that those who practice meditation and mindfulness have a more universal perspective of life. And this is something that we see among people who meditate a lot. So I want to now move from the physiological changes that happens in our brain, to our neural pathway, to the actual experiences that we experience in our day-to-day lives as we start meditating. So I want to talk about the benefits of these, introspection, ICRMS, and what are some of the key benefits that you start seeing as we start practicing this meditation. You may not see it today, you may not see it tomorrow, but over time you start experiencing this. The first thing that you start seeing, and this is tied to the physiological changes and the transformation that happens to the brains that controls certain experiences that we have. But one of the first experiences that we get, which I covered in detail, but I'm going to summarize, is this experience of, again, getting a much more peaceful experience. You become more peaceful, you feel a sense of, joyfulness, a sense of calm and sublimity. And you see that the mind that is racing becomes more and more quieter because the anchor is no more the sensory organ that is stimulating things, but it's much more deeper within ourselves through this practice of introspection, contemplation, reflection, meditation. So you see a sense of calmness, sublimity, a kind of quietude and a sense of peaceful. So this is the first phase that one gets. The second phase is actually you see that something very interesting happens, is that when we practice meditation over time, we start getting, a much more greater focus before the mind is all over. And we see that the mind becomes more focused, more targeted, more, outcome oriented and more objective oriented, not being pulled in many, many different, directions. And we see that this has an important impact. So the peace leads to that focus. That focus actually now recalibrates the mind. Parts of the mind that is stimulated starts exploring. The explorer in one starts coming and you want to know more. You want to learn more, deeper things, more complex things. So the inquiring mind starts emerging. You're always asking a lot of questions. You're always trying to find answers and solutions. And you see that that search starts coming. Now, one of the things also happens is that your mind is so preoccupied with the seeking of knowledge, the mind stops focusing on things that are trivial and frivolous, and it has no time for other things that makes the mind shrunken. That in itself is a major reduction of stress. You say, never mind, it's okay. These small things, let it pass. See? So you see that you want to do more deeper things. So you see that when people become more focused, start thinking deeper, small details, they don't worry too much. Right? So this is something that you see among people who meditate, people who think deeply, and if you read the biography of great thinkers, you see that people like Mahan and Einstein and, Gauss and all these great people, they're so focused and targeted, but they are not caught up by other things, right? There's a greater search that they have. You see that as you do this, your memory becomes much more better because you're sorting out the information more effectively because you're only taking information that is important and profound. And it deepens in your, when you get thoughts, things that we deepen are stored in our memory. So we remember things better. So we improve our memory. And there are many things that are not relevant, I don't remember, but there are a lot of the profound things that is deepen, and become core to my brain or my memory. It becomes, I remember them, whether it's a particular theorem or a particular philosophy. I can crystallize that even though I've studied it 40, 50 years ago. So the memory starts improving because it deepens that. Also, that reliability of that information that is being accessed and analyzed and made inference also becomes better. So you can rely, reliability of your brain and your mind becomes much more better. You say, okay, this is something that I can remember. This is something that I can make a connection with. This is something I can reason. So you see that the mind becomes more powerful, the intellect becomes really powerful. And also you see that because you have that information, the library of resources, the mind becomes more agile. It can relate to things. It can strategize. It can be tactical at times, and at times during the most difficult period, it is able to find that solution in a kind of very sharp and precise way. So we see that it starts off with that, introspection, contemplation, reflection, and meditation and service, that mind that is always thinking about a bigger, helps us to attain that peace and the focus and the inquiry, the explorer, you know. And when we get that important, ability of the brain and the mind, we see that, we become more gentler, more graceful, more humility, and a sense of compassion that comes in. We want to be able to help the people that are unable to do it. Somehow the mind becomes more sensitive to the needs of others. That is why you see that great thinkers, great writers, great Mahans have profound compassion for society, for nature, for vulnerable communities. They want to be able to make a difference. It's not shock scenery. There are people that meditate for their own benefit, meditate for their family's benefit. But you see that they take it to the next level of extending their circle of impact and influence and value to not just their family, but the broader community and society. There is a lot of literature that shows that the act of kindness makes important switches in the brain, and that act of kindness actually enables the mind to move one notch higher in that connectivity, in that relationship building, in the interconnectedness, in that ability to see and figure out things, right? There's ample literature that shows that, but it all comes from that ability to, go deeper within oneself to attain that peace and all the things that I've been speaking about. So this is something that the great Mahans and the saints and sages discovered over the years. Right? But what is really interesting is that as we do this, right, our thought processes, the way we generate thoughts, become more graceful, more gentle, more profound, there's a sense of greatness and gratitude that comes in, right? You appreciate, existence itself. You appreciate your life and the life of others, right? So we see that happening for those who are practicing meditation seriously and not in a mechanical way. There's a change and transformation that happens in the brain, in the mind, and in the personality, right? And they're always fired up. Most people can work 4 or 5 hours and then they get tired. But people who are doing the ICRMS can work for long hours, and are able to have the mental stamina to do multiple things at, multi-level stuff that ordinary human beings cannot do. So we see this an integral part of this meditation. Now, that has a knock-on effect. The brain is so important, and we saw in the previous satsangs that we need to look after the health of the brain. The health of the brain determines the health of the body. The health of the brain, of course, nutrition is very important. Of course, pushing the brain to think deeper is very important. Meditating is very important. Exercise is very important. Doing stretching and, yoga asanas are very important. Whenever you can, do some simple stretching, to recalibrate the brain, and give you that sense of sublimity and peacefulness. So the health of the body depends very much on the health of the brain, and the ICRMS helps the brain and help in the process help the body. It also has a impact on the mind. The mind becomes powerful. The power of the human mind is underestimated. It can achieve many, many things. Fantastic, as I said, mental stamina, resilient, resolve, and when we don't do ICRMS, or when we do prayers or meditation in a mechanical way, we don't get a full benefit of, the brain and the mind. So a powerful mind helps us in many sense to navigate through the various challenges of life, the vagaries of all the things that we go through, the sukha dukkha cycles, the worries, the challenges, right? So we see that, this simple practice doesn't cost us anything. By just sitting down quietly and introspecting, contemplating, reflecting, meditating, and, sharing that experience with a greater society does have a profound impact on our body, our health of our body, mind, and intellect. As I said earlier, when we meditate, our mind starts becoming like a powerful library. It remembers things that are really profound. It stores that information really well, like a well sought out library. And when we need it, you're able to access it. But more importantly, something very interesting happens is that when the library is really sorted, it is compartmentalized. That information and the experiences are compartmentalized. But the separation between the compartments become more and more porous, right? It's not fixed. It's not, the porousness allow that information between the different, in the different compartments to cross-pollinate. And you see that this is where the creativity starts happening. That you may have had one experience, you learn something, you start putting together and say, wow, you get a eureka moment. So that connectedness of our different pockets of thoughts, or the quantum of thoughts, leads to a greater fusion of creativity and fission of multiple ideas and multiple ways of looking at things and multiple ways of understanding and reasoning and discovering new innovations. So that we see that the powerful library of knowledge and wisdom starts becoming a library that interconnects, that you're able to, test different things in your brain, in your mind, so that you're able to come up with, different combinations of ideas, and outcomes. So this connected state, connected in the sense that the information is all interconnected. That interconnectedness helps us to be connected to a much more higher order of our own spiritual self. Remember, we have experiences. What is a world? The world is actually all the experiences that we have. And some of the experiences may be deep and profound. Some may be very frivolous. The deep and profound one we store. And we see that, as we store that information, it is not in a fixed compartment. The compartment becomes more porous. There's a cross-pollination between the different thoughts and experiences. And you see that suddenly you get a blissful moment, you get a great idea, you get a great understanding which was not there before because of that connectedness. And this is what, over the period of time, as we meditate and we are able to understand our own brains, processes, our minds, way of capturing information and thoughts and relating them slowly, as they become more and more connected, we get an experience of not just our physical bodily experience, but we start getting that which animates the body, that which is animating this matter and energy, which is far more superior, which we call the spirit, or you can call it the big I, you can call it the divine force. That's because of the cross-pollination of the experiences that opens up the avenue of our mind and our brain to be able to experience this. So we start getting universal, you know, experiences, and we start, that combination enables that universal outlook on life. And you see that those who practice meditation are able to be not exclusive in their thought, but more inclusive, more open, more kind of universal in their way of life. And this is what leads to an enlightened state, that you have this profound connected state of a substratum which is much more transcendental to our physical body and our mind that is anchored on the physical body and the experiences. The mind now slowly decouples from the physical body to a much more deeper experiential body that we call that spirit. So we start getting the experiences, the profound sense of joy and happiness that is not related to a material experience. So this is why we see that, great Mahans have this profound, enlightening experiences that are far greater than their own biology. That is what the enlightened state of experience. You're always in the connected state. You're powered by something far greater than the energy that you take from your food, right? And when the moment that energy dissipates, your body gets tired. But no, this is powered by a force that is far superior to the matter and the material energy that we consume. This is something that is already inherent in us because the mind is unable to tap it. The mind relies on the material body to sustain itself. So here, slowly, the mind, when the mind becomes powerful, the intellect becomes very sharp, it enables the mind to be in that connected state that gives that universal dimension and experiences that leads to that enlightening, what Mahan calls a Paranjoti experience. And this is the process of awareness of the self, a supreme substratum that is far greater than the human biology. When I say self, here is that substratum that is silent and spiritual. That's what we call. It leads to that, expansion of our consciousness beyond our material consciousness. It leads to the liberated state, that is the L in itself, a liberated state, the patritanele. We're not, caught up by the cycle of the cause and effect cycle. That liberated state, a state that is profoundly, gives us that amazing experiences that while we are going through this bodily experiences, we are an observer, silent observer, but not impacted by it. And ultimately, that awareness leads us to that I am that, the I God concept that, if God is everywhere, if God is omnipresent, then the closest distance God is with me too, zero distance. And that is the eureka moment, that the day you attain that, everything that you see is godly and divine. And this is what that ICRMS, all the great saints and sages have been talking about, the profound interconnectivity of our consciousness to the supreme consciousness. So while we may be still existing in this material world, right, with all the limitations and all the, but we are able to live in a very, profound and transcendental way. So this is what this great Mahan's teachings and the great saints that teach us about this practice of simple ICRM. It doesn't cost us anything. We don't have to travel anywhere for pilgrimage. We don't have to do anything. All that is required is sit down quietly Even if you don't have a chair or a comfortable, just sit down on the floor quietly, close your eyes, 3/4, focus inside. It doesn't cost anything. If you can do that every day, we see that slowly, slowly you would get that profound experience of that supreme self, which is far greater and powerful than our human biology. If everybody does that, for youth, if a young person does that, if a student does that, they would be profound in whatever that they do. The same thing with a professional, a householder, and as we age, we are continuously evolving until the final stages of our lives. Even then, we are able to understand the transition and leave this body beautifully with that enlightened experience. This is what the art of living an enlightened, way of life. This is what my guru taught me, and this is what I learned from Mahan and all the other Advaita teachings and scriptures of what the role of the benefit of the ICRMS process. Sandosham.